as well.
Yes. Yeah, and if not, I can send over my Fathom. But the only problem
Yeah,
with the Fathom is it doesn't change onto you when you're speaking. It just stays on me.
yeah, that's
So yeah,
okay. It looks like it's recording, which
happy
is cool.
days.
All right, so thank you very much for coming along, AJ. I wanted to do this interview. AJ and I were having a chat before this, and I was sharing how I've been stalking him for a little bit, which I tend to do with people that I'm really fascinated by. So I'll watch and listen and. Yeah, I love what you're doing, and we're on the same page in terms of helping people be their best, I guess. AJ, I'll let him talk about his business and the method behind what he does, method behind his madness. But yeah, I really wanted to jump on and just ask you a couple of questions today. So what I thought we'd start with is just intro yourself and share a little bit about what you do.
Yes, definitely. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to the show. I really appreciate that. In regards to myself, it's a fun one. It's obviously one of the biggest questions we get asked is how come we're in this space? What is it that has driven our passion for this? So for me, without even realizing, I guess it starts from birth, as cringe as that may sound, because from the moment I was from the moment I was born, I was diagnosed with something called hypertrophic pyloric stenosis, which is basically just projectile vomiting. So that meant from an early age, I required surgery. The doctors were just on standby, basically waiting for that to happen. So as you can imagine, it just disrupted my whole gut microbiome from the very off. And then from then, it became even more of a journey. Again, looking back now, I was pulled out of school from young ages, going through speech impairment classes. And that's because I had a lisp, I had a stutter, and I had dyslexia. So it was amazing for me looking back at it now, but obviously at the time it was challenging. And asthma also played a huge role within my journey as well. So I had some respiratory challenges there. And what I actually found is the emotional link to that. So now, looking at obviously how we look into health from a multifaceted position, it's really interesting to recognize that anytime I was having an asthma attack, it was actually more driven around either me not feeling good enough. I was a year four racing in a school race, and a year six was ahead of me. Like this was me in year four, and I'm thinking being second isn't good enough here. And I remember just having an asthma attack then. And there was other times where when I was playing football, so I grew up playing football, my dad will shout at me if I'm offside or if he wants me to kind of shoot for goal, things like that. And I always recognized that would cause a trigger as well. So if it upset me, I was more likely going to have an asthma attack at that moment. So yeah, you can start to see how interconnected everything starts to become. But I was really fortunate because at the age of 14, that's what started to lead me down the coaching path. So I don't know if you have it here in Australia, but in England, we have the opportunity to go on work experience at the age of 14.
Yep.
So I went and worked for my local football club. And from the moment that I started coaching, I was like, wow, this is awesome. Like playing is great, but being able to coach others in something that you love was just as incredible. And I guess I get to do that now. I have the privilege of doing that, obviously, with blood work every single day.
Yep. Yeah, that's cool. So,
Yeah.
where do you come from? Talk a little bit about who you are in that regards.
Yeah, so where I come from is England, if we can tell by the accent. I have been to America as well for university, which was quite cool. I lived in Northern Ireland for a little bit as well. I've traveled the world, which is obviously quite cool as well. But yeah, I come from a place, mainly I'm going to say, because again, we dotted around in England. Like I was born in Lincoln. We then moved to a place called Birmingham. And then we moved to a place called Buchan, which is where I spent most of my life. Usually, when I say Buckingham, a lot of people think of Buckingham Palace. It's actually not close to Buckingham Palace. It is fairly close to London, but it's not in London. So, yeah, I'd say Buckingham is where I really grew up.
Yep. Yeah, cool. And how long have you been in Australia for?
I've been in Australia now for a year and a half.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
so it was since November 2023.
Yep. Yeah, and you're loving it, right?
Absolutely. Well, actually, I was loving it. So when we were in Perth, the weather was glorious when it came to blue skies. Obviously, we do know it has a breeze there. There's no doubt about that. But as you can imagine, coming from England and being able to then wake up and go down to the beach and see the blue skies, it's just something that I'll always be forever grateful. I'll never take it for granted. Even watching the sunset on the rocks, because obviously we know the sunset's over on the west side as well. So again, absolutely incredible for us. And then we recently moved to Queensland. Now, this just so happens to be the wettest year in Queensland for over 20 years. So I don't actually feel like I'm in Australia right now. I feel like I could be back in the UK with the weather.
So, just for context too, you moved over there just before that cyclone dropped in, yeah?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So we've definitely weathered a storm here, and unfortunately, the house hasn't come off in a good position at all. Because again, with the Australian builds that I've that we're not really used to in England, is you guys have these box gutters. So a lot of the times the leaves can go into these box gutters, and therefore, because no one was living here for 5 years before us, the leaves got trapped. So whenever it would rain, the water would have nowhere else to go other than back into the house. And now I'm sure anyone who's listening to this is very health conscious. So they know obviously the repercussions of having water damage in the house can then lead to mold. So yeah, we're first obviously being very health conscious. We're very concerned about the water damage, and yeah, we're trying to get out of here as soon as possible. But it is quite a challenge being now on the east side looking for a place without mold. So we've looked for over 10 different houses, and every single one of them, bar one, has had mold so far. The one in which we liked, unfortunately, was in an area which we didn't feel aligned with us, unfortunately, which I think is very important to make sure, obviously, as you know, your environment is suited to like who you are as a person and can equally drive you towards health.
Yeah, yeah. And that's perfect because the one question that I wanted to ask you, because there's a lot of people in Australia who aren't actually that aware of mold and the way that that sort of stuff impacts the body. So just touch on that a
Yes.
little bit for us.
Yeah.
What's
Well,
that?
yeah, I noticed that because when we were getting some people to help us out to find a place, when asking about their knowledge around mold, they weren't really aware of it. Yet, obviously, we know how much it can really jeopardize your health. So, yeah, with mold, obviously, this can actually trigger a whole host of events. Like, if we were to look into symptoms, we could then, if I was a mold specialist, I'd be pretty much saying every symptom is leading back to mold. Like that's how many symptoms it can give you. One thing I would say actually for anyone who's listening, if you are curious if you've been impacted by mold, is take a test online called the VCS test, which is a visual contrast sensitivity test, which we actually use with clients and we find very beneficial. So if we suspect mold from the bloods, we get them to just do this as well. So obviously we'll get their bloods, we'll then check their symptomology. Both of them could say mold, but I still want to get a third piece of data just to make sure. And every single time so far, it's also showing up with mold for them due to obviously this test showing issues around biotoxins.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it is a huge issue in Australia and especially
Yes.
in areas over east and where it gets quite damp. And people just don't realise it because I believe a lot of Australians are, it'll be right, or,
Oh,
that stuff doesn't
yeah.
exist, or what are you talking about?
Yeah, I've got a prime example of this. So when we had some mold experts come over, they were more part of an insurance company, but basically the guy said to us, "Oh, there isn't any mold on the surface, so you're fine."
Bingo.
Which is definitely not okay and slightly worrying if these mold experts or insurance people are saying this because the mold doesn't have to be visible. Like a prime example of this was when we were watching houses get built during the cyclone storm. Can you imagine people are building houses with obviously the wood panels? Now it's absolutely rain, like it's pouring down and it's humid, which is then going to make it a more susceptible environment for mold to grow on. But then after that, they're going to put something else over the wooden panel. But there's still going to be mold on that wooden panel. You just can't see it, but there's mold behind there. So this mold is going to take years to accumulate before you even see it. But in reality, it's still there.
Yeah, yeah, it's absolutely insane. And
Yeah.
we have so I live in Western Australia. That's where like I
Hey.
met you over here. But
Yeah.
I have lived in the East Coast for a long time, moved to the West Coast, and the house
Yes.
that I live in at the moment, whilst it's a brick home, it has a timber frame and
Yes.
it has rising damp because it's built in an area that's predominantly swamp. And I can
Yes.
see it and I can tell what the symptoms are and things, but other people think that you're nuts until they
Yes.
start to learn about it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is it. So if we just go through if we go over some symptoms, like for example, fatigue, weakness, it could be joint pain, it could be joint pain, it could be an inflammatory response, could be even like having issues with body temperature regulation. It could be excessive thirst, increased urination. It could be getting a metallic taste in your mouth.
Yep,
Like, there's so many different things which can lead us back to mold.
yep,
And one of the things we do obviously know that it impairs is obviously your neurofunction. So it can have a big impact on your cognitive function.
yep,
So that's a big one to look out for. And I never like to blame just one thing as well. Like, I'm really big on understanding more, like knowing what else could be stressors. So a fine example of this, which I think will fit this conversation very well, is how mold isn't just in the environment when it comes to like in your house, but you can also get mold through food as well.
yes,
So even though the house may only be filling a bit of your inflammatory cup, let's call it for now, if you then stack that up with some foods that also have mold in them, that's what's going to obviously tip your cup over where you go into this like chronic inflammatory position.
yep, yep. And one of the ones that I learned about probably in the last 6 years was coffee. You know, like
Yes.
and it's insane. There's places around the world, I'm sure it's Japan, where they have a coffee come in, like imported coffee, and they will test it and check it.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't meet their requirement in terms of zero mold and no toxicity, they get
Wow.
rid of it. And who's the country that buys it? Australia and the US. It's like it's
Yeah.
insane. Like, but so your coffee,
Yeah.
which so many people drink multiple cups a day, could be
Yes.
actually feeding this cycle.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And again, it's that cumulative approach, right? So maybe the one-off coffee isn't going to cause any harm, but we also know people love their coffee and could be having multiple cups a day, which is then just unfortunately stacking up. And then this is what can cause like allergy type responses as well. So that's probably the biggest one around mold that people don't realize is it can cause issues with mast cell activation. It can cause issues around histamine intolerances. So people could be thinking they're having like an allergic response or they've just got this random red rash when in reality it's just this histamine response from the mold, whether that be from your environment or from your food or even your drink in this situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So now
Yeah.
that we've terrified everybody with that aspect,
Yeah.
um, share with me what it is. What do you actually love doing, AJ? Talk about what you're passionate about and what you really
Yeah.
love.
Well, you can see I'm very passionate about speaking. I love obviously the educational side of things. I love research as well. I was actually going to come on to some mold stats, but we'll leave that for another day. But yes, so I absolutely love blood work. Like I believe everyone should be getting blood work if they really want to be in the healthiest position possible. Now, we're not just talking going to the GP and getting your blood work. I actually have a really interesting example of this yesterday. I actually had a friend go to the doctors and she phoned me up after because she was worried. She goes to the doctors and she was like, "Oh, my doctor just circled these markers which are high, but he didn't tell me anything about them." I was like, "Okay, interesting. Like, I'd love you to obviously send me a copy of that." And she just said all he said was to just retest. Like, he thinks it's just going to be absolutely fine. And I'm like, hang on a minute. Like, anyone listens to this, hopefully you know that we use functional ranges, which are basically more narrow ranges inside the conventional ranges because we're looking to what's truly healthy rather than looking for the absence of disease. Like we want to know what it is which can help you to function at your very best. So by using these functional ranges, we can see whether there's deficiencies going on, dysfunctions, and imbalances in the body. Like these are key before you become into this disease state. So as you can imagine, if someone's actually outside these conventional ranges, it's a pretty big warning sign. Whereas this doctor's just gone, you'll be fine. And this person has had a lot of nerve pain. Thankfully, obviously, through our intelligence of reading bloods, we know that from her bloods, it was showing a B12 deficiency, which can also lead to nerve issues. So it's quite an easy correlation, but there's not many doctors doing that. And that's the thing. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. Because I'm like, if you can get your blood work interpreted by a functional medicine practitioner who is trained in interpreting and analyzing bloods in depth, then your life is going to change. Like it is going to be incredible for you. And this is it with functional medicine. Like, it's not just looking into, oh, this is your blood work. No, from that blood work, we're able to see what's going to be best when it comes to your nutrition, what's going to be best when it comes to your lifestyle, what's going to be best when it comes to the supplements in which you're taking. But it even goes beyond that. It starts going into, okay, so these micronutrients may be best in phase one, and then we can move on to these foods in phase two. When it comes to your lifestyle interventions, an ice bath, as good as it may sound on social media, it's just not great for you right now because your body's already in a really stressed position. So we're going to leave it out in phase one, but later on we're going to pull it in. And then when it comes to your supplements, let's say there's something obviously going on with your liver detoxification pathways, it may not be best to go in with methyl donors. So they may be great for you and you may be deficient in certain methylated Bs. However, what we can actually at a deeper level, you've got low stomach acid, which is impairing the way you break down protein, and therefore you're not getting in B12 efficiently. It sounds very simple when we break it all like that, right? And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I'm like, we can make health simple. We can make health very fun as well. And this is another thing that I'm passionate about. Is like, whenever anyone's on their health journey, let's try and get even more people involved because you can have so much fun with it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's it for me in a nutshell.
Yeah. Yeah. Bingo. So, when I joined in with you guys in the Institute of Health, and I was reading stuff and listening to things and watching videos. I was like, oh my God, I feel like I've found my bunch of crazies, like I feel like I'm at home because that's the language.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's not in the Western medical world. So apart
No.
now I don't feel like such a weirdo on the outside of a system, right? I mean, I'm a weirdo within another system full of other
Yes.
ones. Yeah.
I
But we
love
do we do work well with open-minded practitioners, so other
100%.
GPs and all those sort of things. When they want to learn and they're switched on, it's like, cool, we're your whole health
Yes.
team. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually explained this on a webinar the other day. So someone asked me about my own journey, and it was like how I went from doctor to doctor until I found the doctor who's interested in learning more himself. So I was doing a lot of research on my own. And this was the first doctor who did just dismiss me. So, for example, let's take IBS. So, I was diagnosed with IBS. When I did my own research, I was like, oh, this is interesting. This study, and then when I started to read more, it was like 70 to 80% of people with IBS have SIBO. So I was like, I've nailed this. So I went to the doctors, I told them, and the doctor said back to me, oh, it's rare. I was like, what? I was like, have a look at these studies. Like, it's clearly not rare. And he just dismissed me there and then. Went to the next doctor, and they just go, oh, we can't test you for SIBO, unfortunately. And I'm like, but you told me I've got IBS and it looks like I've got SIBO because my symptoms are matching SIBO, and you're telling me you're not going to test me. Like, that to me seemed very negligent. So I just kept going to a doctor until one doctor went, oh, do you know what? That sounds really interesting. He goes, okay then. And then we found out I do have SIBO. So I was like, yes, I feel heard. I feel understood. And I feel like I'm getting somewhere. Like, I was finally excited to try and address my health challenges for the first time. So then I started to do more research and I found out how you could change certain things around just your nutrition to help with SIBO, for example. I come back to this doctor, he's seen some results with me, he's just asking me how I've done it. And I'm like, I've just simply only changed my nutrition approach. And he's like, that's awesome. I'm like, this guy's great. Like, I'm coming to him, but he's doing the testing which I need to find out if I am improving or not. And he's being completely honest about he hasn't trained for this stuff. And that's okay because he's open about it and he wants to learn more. And he's becoming passionate and he's caring because he knows that obviously it's getting me into a better position as well, rather than him just giving me a really, really kind of kind of a small amount of time, we'll call it, because obviously a lot of times when we go to the doctors, like if we look at it from the UK perspective, for example, on average, you only spend 9 minutes per appointment. And that's really not enough time to obviously be able to educate and then understand more about someone.
Yep. 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 We can go down a whole rabbit warren with that one.
Yeah.
But the other thing too is I know that I have some medical professionals that are part of my circle and who will probably watch this.
Yes.
And the biggest thing for me is helping everybody to work together because
Yes.
that's the way that we move forward. It's that intertwining of skills and expertise. It doesn't matter if we don't all know everything. We're not meant to.
We can't. Yeah.
Yeah, we
It's a
just can't.
collective effort.
Yeah. So if we work together, then everyone feels good and everyone feels
Yes.
better and it's perfect, right? Yeah.
Yes. And I think that's the biggest thing as well. Like, another example of yesterday from someone who I met is they were seeing a lot of different specialists. And although the specialist obviously knew what was going on in that area, it almost dismissed the other specialist, if that makes sense. And therefore, this one client was taking 15
Yeah,
different pills, and it was like they're only doing that one job to then mask this issue, which is then inhibiting this pathway. So now this
yeah,
specialist is having to get involved. Whereas actually, if we all just work together and we discuss how everything is interconnected, that's going to change someone's life. So yes, it's definitely about a collaborative approach and
yeah,
recognizing that we can't do everything alone. And actually, you mentioned something earlier which was huge, and why I'm so passionate around building a program which offers the most amount of support possible. Because as part of my journey, I've seen many different functional medicine practitioners and mentors, and it was almost like I was given this great plan. Like, I cannot say anything bad about it. Like, the plan was fantastic, the theory behind it superb, but the thing that I found was missing was maybe maybe the education side of things, but it was down to the fact that no one was really there, if that makes sense. There wasn't the support and guidance, and that's something I'm absolutely huge on, is making sure that someone feels like they have someone in their corner. They have someone who they can just reach out to, someone to lean on. Like, that support alone makes you feel like you're not alone. And
yeah,
therefore, that can just reduce stress significantly. And if we actually look into a lot of health challenges, we can bring it back down to stress. Like, even if we're talking about gut health, there's now a lot more emerging research which is talking about stress modulation. So again, it's showing the impact of stress on our overall well-being. So yes, by having obviously a team with you, you feel like you do have people there in your corner supporting you, uplifting you, and giving you answers and solutions. And that's the key for me, is having that support and guidance.
yeah, yeah, that's perfect. And for me, it is gi giving people the knowledge that they can borrow my belief and that I've got their back. So
Yes.
I'm happy to stand there with them, and I'll be there with them. And you would be 100% the same because we have that similar
Yes.
journey. It's like, yep, it's okay. We understand it might be scary,
Yes.
and that's okay. But we are still there with you. And for a lot of other health professionals, they are so busy that they just can't do that. So it's
Yes.
not that they don't want to. We understand that they do, but they see so many people, and yeah,
Yes.
so I think the future of medicine, if you like, or the future of health will be very much a collaborative approach, and it will
Yes.
change. I feel it will be a lot simpler.
Yeah, I feel like it's already coming to that now. So something
Yeah,
that we do, which is quite unique, is you mentioned it earlier. Like, we actually partner with a lot of doctors, as you know. We partner with a lot of doctors, and we partner with a lot of other coaching companies. We collaborate with other mentors as well. Like, we really do want this to be a true holistic approach where we can all come together and we can make sure that we put the patient first, that the client is being put first, rather than it being just a one person thing. It's like, no, you've got a whole team in your corner. Like, you've got the top experts here to help you.
yep, yep. And the beauty is that we're going to teach them all the way along. So you
Yes.
referred to research, right? So this is another important
Yes.
point that I want people to understand is that Dr. Google may not necessarily be the best place to go to, and perhaps Chat GPT, while
Yeah.
it can be useful, it may not be the best place to be. And you mentioned research, so we know
Yes.
that people can go and yep, reading scientific studies can be overwhelming for a lot of people, but the
Yes.
little abstract at the start will generally give you the taster. And yeah, just you need to start learning how to do that sort of research versus just going and asking Google or yeah,
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And as you know, this is where that priority of dysfunction model comes into it so well as well, because I do feel like there's a lot of people who overcomplicate health. I'm not saying that health is necessarily simple, but we can make it a hell of a lot simple. And what I mean by that is actually understanding what the foundations are. So let's take obviously like your upper GI function, for example. Have you got low stomach acid? Have you got any sort of have you got any nutrient deficiencies going on? What is your sleep like? What is your perceived stress like? Because although you may not be emotionally stressed, physiologically you may be stressed. What is your mental health like? Because again, let's say obviously the brain signals are afferent, meaning they also come from the body. Again, we need to find out what's happening on a physiological level, which is where the blood work comes in, but also the psychological level, which is why we have to understand the client, the patient. And then we've got other factors to look into, as we mentioned earlier, around mold. So we've got to look into their environment, and we've even got to look into things like their hydration and their electrolyte balance. Like, these are the key foundations that people try and skip one of them, but in reality, if we can nail all of them, if we can get them to a more optimal position, it isn't that simple, as I say. But if you can really work on them things, your health is going to see an incredible shift towards optimizing.
Yep, and we only have this body, right? It's the one thing that carts us
Yeah.
around and does all the stuff. So
Yes.
really, we
And
we want to enjoy the journey that we've got in it. So
yes.
it's going to take a little while.
Yeah, and on that note as well, it's, yeah, so there's kind of two ways. So one, we've got to think about how long we've been dealing with these health challenges. Like it's not just going to be an overnight thing where all of a sudden we feel a lot better. Like if you've been having health challenges for years, decades even, then of course it's going to be a long approach. It's going to be slow, but it's going to be incredible because we're looking after the future you. So we've got to obviously recognize that. But there's also something else that you said, which I'm just going to try and remember from the top of my brain. We'll try and come back to it. If I remember, I'll jump back in with it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the health journey is really cool, and I recommend people get a journal, get their own journal, and it's their human experiment.
Yes.
You are your own human experiment, yeah,
Yes,
and
that's it.
and yeah, and
I
this
was going
is
to
what you want
say,
to do.
a lot of people can think their body's working against them, right? When in
Yeah,
reality, our body's always trying to work with us. It's for us. Like it always wants to protect us. It wants to put us in the best position possible. Even if we look into cholesterol levels being high or bilirubin levels being high, it's because it's in a protective position. We've just got to find out what is causing it to be high. So
yeah,
rather than blaming our body, it's more like, no, our body's very intelligent. It wants to work for us. There's just deeper things going on in which we have to find out in order to pull it into a more favorable position.
yeah,
Because a lot of the times we can start to create a disconnect with our own body. And when we start to talk to people about certain things, if they're aware of it, they're not. And that's a big missing piece as well. Like we need to create a deeper connection and understanding with our own body.
yeah, yeah. Boom, bingo. Yeah, this is really cool. All right, so um, is there anything else that you want to share?
Um, Not off the top of my head. I just love how obviously we've just naturally come to these sort of conversations. So I really appreciate that. Appreciate the questions being asked as well.
Yep,
So thinking about anything that I'd like to share, yeah, there's nothing in particular other than obviously me encourage everyone to get their blood work done and just try and understand it to a deeper level. But even that, as I mentioned earlier, is just the physiological part. Like we still have to respect you as an individual. We have to respect you as a person. And this is where the Institute of Health obviously always says we want to be thinking about people over protocols. And that is so true because, like I said, with my case, I had the best protocols, but was it really practical for me to do, especially if I didn't really have the understanding and if I didn't have the support? There's a lot missing there. So I would much rather someone be in a position where they feel fully supported alongside a good protocol.
yeah, cool. All right, so if people want to work with you or they want to stalk you for starters and then work with you, give us some information. How do you want them to find you?
Yeah, I'm always happy for people to stalk me. So Instagram would be the best way. So my handle is AJ underscore superhuman health. So that would be the best place to find me. I don't post all the time on there. I try and make sure that when I do post that it's as either educational or personal as possible. I like to have that balance because again, I think something that we want to recognize if we're going to work with someone, we want to understand who they're working with and what even their lifestyle is like because it can be very inspiring and it can also let you know the type of person you're obviously going to be dealing with, you're going to be working with, and that's key again in order for you to get success out of your health as well. So yeah, that would be the best place. But if anyone wants to email me, then that'll be aj@superhumanhealth.co.uk.
Yeah, I'll pop those that information in the description when I start to publish this and put it around. But yeah, that's
Thank you.
perfect. Okay, so I really appreciate, again, circling back to the start of the conversation, I really appreciate that you were able to give me the time for us to have this chat. Um, and I love what we talked about. I really think that that's going to hit the nail for some people. So a lot of information, especially the two
Yeah.
of us talking, could probably fill hours, if not days.
Yes.
So yeah, anyone that watches this, just take little pieces, come back and watch it as many times as you need to. And yeah, feel free to reach out. I'll pop AJ's details in there. And yeah, cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much, B.